Whether it's a club, bar, corporate event, or wedding, you don't want your band to sound mediocre.
A sullen riot penetrated through her mind.
One of the best ways to make sure your band doesn't sound mediocre, bring a sound guy. But maybe you don't know a sound guy. Maybe you can't afford one. Maybe you don't trust the house sound guy with your show. In any case, there may come a time where you have to run sound while playing with your band on stage. If that's you, this is your video. These are 10 tips to make sure you sound amazing while running sound on stage. Alright, if you end up liking this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell. I hear every YouTuber say that. I'm not a YouTuber. This is the first video I've made on YouTube. So hopefully you get as much enjoyment out of it as I've had making it. And hopefully these tips can help you if you run a small band and you do events and you do clubs and bars and you find yourself very often wondering, what does that main mix sound like? We've all had that situation where we put up a recorder or we watched somebody's phone video or something and we had an awesome time on stage, but what came out front was just not good. These are 10 ways that we can try to make sure that that doesn't happen. There are no guarantees. Certainly having a sound guy is better. This is not preferable to having a sound guy. But if you don't have one, follow these tips to try to give yourself the best chance of success. Our first tip is have 2 sets of ears you trust. Now this is something I like to do during a sound check. I'll have the band play a tune where a trusted member of the band, someone I trust with the mix, is not really that important to that tune, or even if they are, it's okay. But they step out front with the soundboard, the iPad or their phone or whatever. They listen to the mix. They put together a good, competent, basic mix, of course, without them in it. And then they come up and either myself or someone else will swap out with them and double check the mic levels and the mix levels on the person that just mixed. So you have 2 people working on this mix to try to make sure that everybody's in, nothing gets forgotten, and everything is at a good level versus everything else in the mix. Be careful about which player is doing the mixing. And by this, I mean, know our tendencies. When we're on stage, we're listening to in-ears, we're listening to wedges. We're used to a mix that has a lot of us in that mix. And it's not what the main mix should be, but it's very easy for someone to get out front. Say the guitar player gets out front. He or she is used to hearing a lot of guitar in their mix, so that's what is normal for them. They can have a tendency to make the main mix mirror that. That's not what we want to do, but if you know your tendencies, you can make sure and watch out for putting too much of yourself in that main mix during the sound check. Sneak a peek. This involves a member of the band while you're playing, maybe halfway through the first set, a few songs in, whatever. When they're not playing or less involved in a song, sneaking out to the audience to double check the mix. Try not to make this visually distracting, but if you can do it, it'll help make everybody on stage more confident. Trust your scene. Hopefully by now, if you're running a small band, you're playing in a small band, you're using some sort of a digital console that can save scenes, obviously has all of the outboard gear now within the channel strip on each channel. They're wonderful pieces of technology for doing what we do. And one of the benefits in this case, if you wind up at a gig where you have to run sound on stage, hopefully your last gig has a good scene that sounded great that was saved on the console that you can reuse this time. Even if you don't, during that sound check, save that scene and trust it, stay with it. Chances are, if it sounded good at the last gig or sounded good at the sound check, it's going to sound good while you're playing the gig. Keep it simple. From song to song, you don't want to have a lot of major mix changes that need to happen because nobody's out there to make sure that they're executed properly. Even if you think you know what they are and you're trying to run it from on stage, there's no way for you to hear exactly what the audience is hearing. I've heard a workaround with this where some guys who are using in-ears will switch the routing on the board to listen to the main mix, but that can be really difficult while you're trying to play. My preferred method is to not have a lot of mix changes that need to happen, as far as effects or something going way up or way down, and try to keep each song at a similar mix level to the one before it. Watch the audience. If you look out in the audience and they're having a good time, they're interacting with the band, they're enjoying themselves, the chances are you probably have a good mix, or at least a mix that's really working for what you're doing. If you look out there and the audience is, plugging their ears, or they're complaining, they're grimacing, they're having bad reactions, or this one, they look up on stage and they point to a player and give you a thumbs up or thumbs down, like, I can't hear that person, I can't hear that instrument. I've had people a few times walk up to the stage and say, dude, I can't hear the lead vocals. Could you turn them up? You can trust the audience. They know generally what sounds good to them. And if the mix is sounding good to them and they're enjoying it, you're probably on the right track. Know your music. This is kind of related to keeping it simple, but in this case, I'm saying know when the parts in the music come where people need to duck under, say, a solo or a featured part, or something needs to be emphasized. You don't have to worry as much about the mix being run from out front if the players know what each other are about to do and can react. And this is important for every player on the stage because sometimes everybody needs to come down under that solo. If you know your music, you can mix yourself to a certain degree as a band. Limit the stage volume. I preach this a lot, and I'll probably talk about it in future videos, but the less volume you can have on stage in terms of amps and drums and everything else, the more stable your main mix is going to be. This is especially true for bands that use wedge monitors for vocalists, use guitar amps, bass amps, that kind of a thing. The drummer's got a wedge where he or she is listening to things. Your ears are going to get tired if you're using open monitoring like that. You're going to be halfway through the second set, and you know what happens. That guitar player, that bass player, they're going to reach for that volume knob. They're going to turn it up. This isn't primarily because they feel like they need to be louder, but their ears are tired. They're actually not hearing it as loudly, perceiving it as loudly as they normally do. If you can keep the stage volume low, either by going direct using in-ear monitors, that's something that's a great idea for the stability of the main mix, or at least be aware of your tendencies that when your ears get tired, you're gonna want to turn the volume up. You can resist that tendency and keep that main mix stable. The more volume that comes from on stage, the more it affects what the audience hears, and it might not always be in a good way. Play consistently. This is kind of related to knowing your music. It's kind of related to keeping it simple, but play consistently. If you sound checked a certain way, if you sound checked playing at a certain volume on the guitar, at a certain stick height on the drums, stay with that. Play that song to song to song so it keeps your main mix stable. That mix that you set up at the beginning can stay stable if everybody plays the same as when they sound checked. Last but not least, focus on the vocals. If you get the vocals right, you will have a good gig. Your average person in the audience is not a professional musician, or even if they are, they're just there to have a good time. They will not notice if you have the perfect mix of bass versus guitar, if you get the EQ and compression exactly right, if you chose the right drumsticks, etc., but they will notice if they can't hear the vocals or if the vocals aren't clear. If you get the vocals right, and hopefully you will, if you step out and do the sound check properly, you get those vocals right, you will have a good gig. Thanks for checking out my top 10 tips for sounding awesome while you're running sound from on stage. Hopefully I can make more videos like this. Again, I'm not a professional YouTuber, just like live music. I like running live bands, and playing in them, and this is some stuff that has helped me over the years. Hopefully it helped you. If it did, feel free to comment, like the video. If I got something wrong or you have your own tip that I missed, please leave it in the comments. Hopefully I can get it in the next video, or other people that watch this can see it. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.